Welcome to Mangastorian's Complete Story Series. Today we'll be covering Berserk, chapter 75 to 81. All alterations to the panel text and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by respective companies. Now, when we last left off, the Hawks had made their way towards the Midland borders, when Griffith ran off in a carriage alone. After crashing it, Griffith tried to kill himself, but as the stick pierced through his neck, he saw the crimson behelit in the water. Once he grabbed for it, the world began to change around the Hawks, and soon, the eclipse was upon them. They stood terrified of what they were seeing around them, and then the hills with faces on them started to rise. The figure of a woman began to stand up, and the black feathers started to swirl around her body. As wings sprang out of her back, she began to smile, and soon reverted herself to the size of everyone else. They all began to shout, what was it that they saw? That woman was just a giant. And then from the sky, the faces start to swirl around as one of them pushes his way through, and it descends. Suddenly everyone sees a small figure floating among them, smiling. And another face pushes up from the ground, and then there's a fourth figure forming in the sky. A shadow of a figure looms over everyone, and then out steps a man with his brain exposed and the skin in his mouth peeled back. The four figures stand looking at the Hawks, and Guts asks, could these be gods, or are they devils? The twisted, deformed creatures begin cheering and dancing at the fourth's arrival. While the Hawks try to figure out what's going on, the one with the peeled back mouth tells everyone that it is time for a blessing, and he welcomes them all here. He then raises his hand to point at Griffith, calling him the honorable child, chosen by the law of casualty, the Hawk. Everyone stares at Griffith, and the man goes on stating he is the chosen one, and this place and time has been chosen for him. Guts pulls a dagger out, telling the four of them not to mess with him, and he tells them to all stop their stupid crap. He's seen Griffith's naked body. He doesn't have a tail. There's no reason for them to mix him in with the likes of them. The woman smiles, stating, it is such beautiful friendship. He will make a wonderful sacrifice. Guts asks, what do you mean? And the woman says, yes, a precious sacrifice in order to become a demon king. Everyone tries to understand what they just heard, and the floating man says that the moment that this man came across the behelit, he was qualified to become a demon king. Griffith looks down at his wrist, still holding on to the bleeding egg, and the floating man goes on to state that that is the behelit. It has summoned them here, including all of those that they see before them. Guts looks around, realizing that these creatures surrounding them, they're just like Zod and Waleed. The floating man then points at it, stating that it isn't an ordinary one as well, and the woman says that it is the only one that the guardian angels who can be reborn as God hand can wield. Griffith stares at it, and the woman goes on stating that they are all an important sacrifice for the angels' descent. Everyone looks around, and the creatures begin to lick their lips, and they open up their mouths. They move in to surround everyone, and everyone seems terrified to even move. Guts grits his teeth, asking if those monsters are going to change Griffith in exchange for their lives, and the woman tells him, this is a little different. This is his will. He has offered you all here as a sacrifice. Everyone looks at Griffith, and Guts shouts, that can't be! The man with the peeled back mouth stops him, stating, everything is within the flows of casualty. All has been decided. Your lives have been woven to meet at this point, and now we shall hold the ceremony of the coming Lord. The fat man then calls out for the honorable child to rise to the altar, and suddenly the ground begins to shake. Everyone begins to move out of the way, and the mound that Guts and Griffith stand upon begins to rise. It shoots into the sky while Guts hangs on to Griffith, and soon he loses that grip. Before falling, he reaches out to grab onto Griffith's arm, and as he does, Griffith's elbow snaps, and he lets go. As Guts begins to fall, he stabs into the wall of faces to slow himself down, and as he looks back up, he can see Griffith sitting on the palm of a hand, and the four god hands surrounding him. Back down below, the creatures all begin to chant, it is the ceremony of the coming king! And along the wall of faces, Guts begins to stab and climb his way back up. At the top, the floating man asks Griffith if he's afraid, because before going into the future, he may look once more into his past and know what kind of person he really is. Griffith's vision begins to change, and he sees his younger self running along while the man tells him that this is the reality of his conscious world. The young Griffith runs through the streets looking for his friends, but no one's around. They were all supposed to meet him, and they would all go to the castle on that day, but he would just go alone. As the young Griffith runs through the streets, he looks around because he's in an area that he hasn't been at before, and he asks an old woman for directions. She points the direction that he needs to go and tells him that his friends said that they would go ahead and wait for him. But as Griffith runs ahead, everything begins to turn dark, and there's still no one around. With his next step, he steps on something fleshy, and he sees a pile of dead bodies. He screams trying to run away, but he ends up tripping and falling face first into the blood. While he's screaming, the woman before him tells him to hush, and Griffith tells her that she lied. She tells him that she didn't lie. This is the only way to reach the castle. The person that is going to the castle must crush those beneath him, and if he doesn't, he will end up as one of those bodies. The woman then tells him to look around. His friends are there. He looks up to see one of the boys who used to follow him into battle. The boy says that it was so amazing that he was going to the castle to become a king. Well, he wants to follow Griffith so he can become his knight. He'll be sure to do his best for him. Griffith looks at the boy's toy knight and he tells him, "You can't. You're already dead." The voices call out from behind, telling Griffith to take them as well. They fought for him so that he could pursue his dream. They all wish to build his country while they fight beneath his flag. And Griffith tells them that they can't. He can't bring them all there because they've all died. The woman then tells Griffith that he shouldn't say something like that to his friends. It's because he wanted to go to the castle that people followed him. So if he hadn't said those things, this wouldn't have happened this way. It's because of all of those dead bodies that he has even gotten this far. And if he wishes to charge farther towards the castle, he'll have to pile up more bodies. The woman goes on stating that if he wishes to return, he must not overthink it, or he will join his comrades' bodies next time. Griffith looks at his hands as they begin to rot away, and then he sees his body rotting away, and she begins to yell at him, telling him that if he was going to regret things, he shouldn't have come here. He could have just been satisfied looking for the castle. Then Griffith begins to tell himself that he knew what was going to happen. He knew the bodies that would follow him. A voice calls out asking if this was the path that he chose, that this was his dream, and Griffith looks over at Guts. The woman tells Griffith again that he needs to pile up those bodies. It's the only thing that he can do. He leans down, picking up the dead boy's body, telling himself that there's no point in regretting it now. He can't apologize for what he's done. No, he won't apologize. If he's going to apologize or feel regret, then everything that he's done up to this point would have been for nothing. So yes, he will pile those bodies higher and higher until he reaches the castle. Griffith then begins to see himself in the floating man's eyes, and he tells Griffith that yes, that is what he is. Griffith asks, what is that illusion? And the floating man tells him that it wasn't an illusion. It was the reality of his conscious world. So for him to aim for that castle in the sky, he will need to continue to pile up those bodies. He must walk over the thousands of bodies that were once his comrades. Walk over the tens of thousands of bodies that were once his enemies. Walk over all of them for his one true desire. The woman then points down towards the rest of the Hawks, stating, "Look at everyone down there. Even though they are terrified and filled with despair, they will forgive you, and you shall live. So bury them. Bury them in the ruins of your dreams." The man with the peeled back mouth then holds his hands out, telling Griffith that all he needs to do now is make a single chant. He needs to state, "This I sacrifice," and he will receive the wings of jet black and be carried to heaven. While Griffith sits, Guts climbs his way, calling out to him, and Griffith looks down and smiles, stating yes. Among the thousands of comrades, the tens of thousands of enemies, only this man made him forget his dream. And with that final thought, Griffith says, "I sacrifice." The hands that they are standing on begin to close around Griffith, and the last thing that Guts sees is Griffith smiling. He calls out to him, but the man with the peeled mouth says that the threads that bind the laws of casualty have been tied. The promised time has come. The brand that the man holds begins to shine, and then it begins to shoot out towards everyone. As the brands all find their marks, the monsters soon begin to roar and tower over everyone. The mouths begin to open as the monsters get closer and closer, and soon the bodies are grabbed and the monsters begin to eat and rip every one of the Hawks apart. Everyone screams for help, but the monsters continue their slaughter, devouring everyone in sight. Casca watches as body parts begin to fall, asking if this is really their reality. Why are they here? Guts watches as everyone that he knows is slaughtered, and the man with the peeled mouth tells everyone that their bodies have been engraved with the brand of sacrifice, and it will remain there until the last drop of blood comes out. It will be food for the new child of darkness. Guts looks back and he sees Griffith's body changing, and he begins stabbing, trying to get to him. He shouts not to worry. He will get him out of there. And the God Hand members tell him that it's useless. The humans can't stop this. This is what he wished for. Guts shouts for them all to shut up, and he continues hacking away until his dagger breaks. He tells himself over and over that Griffith couldn't have said that. And then he falls to his knees, asking if this could really have been what he wished for. Off over on the ledge, the monsters begin crawling, making their way back up to the top of the hand, and Guts just turns and looks at them. The monsters begin chanting, "Sacrifice." Finally, Guts lets go of the wall, gritting his teeth. His face begins to turn to pure rage, and he charges forward with a broken dagger. But outside of the changed world, Rickard continues pushing on, telling himself that everyone is just over that hill. And as he reaches the top of the hill, his eyes widen as he looks up to see a swirling vortex before him. Rickard begins running towards the vortex, asking where is everyone. As he gets closer, the smoke begins to fade and he sees two people. Those two people are the Skull Knight and Zod. This is pretty much the epitome of shit hitting the fan in Berserk, but it's only gonna get worse from here, so if you've stuck around for this long, thank you. Every Friday we will continue this tale, because you need to know what happened with Griffith, Guts, and the Hawks. I hope you guys enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to get your Friday dose of Berserk, and I will see you next time right here, or you can follow us on Twitter at Mangastorian.